Welcome back to Firearms and Fitness, everybody. I'm Sean Mons, your main host. And today, we're doing our final review of the Saturn from Hunt World USA. Now, I do apologize for any noise you're going to hear in the background. That is indeed my cats helping me with the video. More on them later. Anyway, again, I wanted to throw out another thanks back out to Hunt World USA for sending out their new optic, their Saturn, what is basically a copy of the ACOG. And it's a copy they did actually really well. To start with though, I made a comment in my previous video on the first shots with this thing that the turrets were backwards. Well, turns out that's not the case. That is actually how they designed them. Instead of moving the impact, they moved the actual optic on the inside. And we've been talking, and we'll get more into us talking with Hunt World USA and whatnot. And honestly, the great feedback they've given me and I've been able to give them and how to improve this optic for version 2 or Gen 2. Mostly because it's almost there, and it's almost like, it almost surpasses an ACOG. Just like the primary arms optics kind of have surpassed ACOGs to a point in price point and just features in general. But this is a wonderful attempt, especially a first attempt at getting things done. Now, in my previous video, I had noted that the turrets are backwards. And it turns out that's not the case. That's actually how they designed these turrets. They want, so instead of what every other optic does, is I'm going to adjust it so the impact goes where I want it to. Instead, it's the exact opposite. They put it so the actual prism in here moves instead, which makes it a backwards thing for most shooters. And that's been expressed to the company, and from my understanding, they're going to change that moving forward, because I was very confused, and I think most my viewers would be confused too as to why that was a choice. Now, moving forward, again, I do want to put out there that I did ask to receive this optic, and I did ask to be able to review on it, and they did send this one out to me free of charge. And all they asked of me was to put out a couple shorts and do a full review on this. I gave them a timeline which I can get this done, and thankfully we met the timeline. This optic now has about 1,200 rounds through it. All right, I've been competitions, just regular practice, and the whole 9 yards, and it's been an excellent optic. Honestly, I thought a lot of the shortcomings that this optic might have would be more of a hindrance than anything else, but no, this has been a wonderful optic to use. Under recoil, I'm not losing the eye box. It's just fine. It's just like an ACOG. If you have good recoil management and whatnot, this is not going to be a problem with you. It's a relatively lightweight optic. It's not the lightest of weights on optics, but it's a pretty good lightweight optic. And something that I think they did infinitely better than an ACOG was they got the fiber optic correct. Now, if anybody here has used an ACOG before, one thing you'll know is ACOGs, their optics, their reticles blow out, which can make it really difficult to try to get a good fine-tuned hit on something, especially something that's under concealment or just hard to see in general, because the actual reticle will blow out. It collects too much sunlight. This one, this little strip right here, seems to be just about perfect. I've been under rain, shine, and sleet, and I've never thought to myself, man, I wish this thing was brighter, or God, I wish this thing was dimmer. No, it's been pretty excellent throughout the entire course of review. I have zero complaints on that. They did an excellent job. Another thing I think they did a fairly okay job with, but could use a bit of improvement, we'll get to that a little bit later, is the reticle. The reticle is very intuitive to use. However, it is in meters, which, as an American, I don't have it on here, but it does come with a Picatinny mount that you can mount other optics to. And that is fine and dandy. It's I guess it depends on what kind of plate you're using with it, because the optic I was trying to use with it as a piggyback would rest right on top of that. It wouldn't quite sit flush. So I opted not to go with that, and I'll probably eventually just put a 45-degree mount on right here and just use it that way. Going on to the clarity of the optic is actually very clear. Out to about 500 yards, I found it kind of pretty easy to see gross movements of anything that you might be shooting at, or anything like that. It was very easy to tell colors and the whole 9 yards. Now, is this Japanese or German glass quality? No, but it is fairly high glass quality. Another thing I want to note too is the reticle itself, going back to that. is actually, here, let me pop up a picture of it real quick. So the reticle on here is actually fine. It's nice, it's easy to see past. So when you gotta make good hits, especially at distance, you're not gonna burn up too much of the target. You can actually see your target relatively through it and make good, solid, easy hits each and every time. At no time did this thing lose its nitrogen purge, did it break, crack, or anything like that. It has been dropped and it has been kind of, well, accidentally dropped, that is. And I don't see any Mars dings except for right here on this little corner, which is not that big of a deal. Maybe you guys can see that. It's right there on that corner. I dinged it kind of, but again, haven't lost zero or anything like that. It's been quite excellent. I haven't done the focus trip bit where I drop it onto AR500, but just regular use and regular training schedules, it's been excellent. Now with anything, there's not without its drawbacks. One, this optic, there's a couple things that can make it just that much better. One, the first thing first, get rid of this mount. This is a horrible mount. Now, it took a little bit of getting used to it. I'm not gonna take it back off because this thing took forever to kind of get set and everything. But yeah, and I know why they went with this. It's because they were, at least this is my assumption. They haven't told me directly, but this is just an assumption. They went with this is because the original ACOG uses a mount like this, where it's got the screw holes right here and you tighten it down with a screwdriver. I have found that those lose zero really quickly, especially if you get dinged or hit. They're meant to be on there, so if you had to, you can twist these off real fast, just and you can get to your irons. Here's the thing, I don't run irons. I can't fucking see irons. So those are kind of useless to me. But not only that, this is a really hard mount to do at this price point. This is a sub $300 optic, which is excellent, but there has to be negotiations here and there, and the mount apparently was the negotiation on this one. I have emailed them and I've told them, just go with a direct screw-in mount and that'd be more excellent than anything else. And they agreed. They also talked to me about trying to do a QD mount, and I told them don't even fucking do it. Don't worry about it. The price point that they're putting out their optic, it's not worth the QD mount, because one of two things are gonna suffer. Either they're gonna make an excellent QD mount, the rest of the optic's gonna suffer, if you keep it at 300 bucks that is, or you're gonna make a shitty QD mount, and this problem still remains that it's a bad mount. Now what I ended up having to do is take these nuts all the way off, thread lock everything, put it back on, take a screwdriver, after I get it hand tight, take a screwdriver and do about a 1/4 to a 3/8 turn on each nut and make sure they're solid, and then I let it set for 2 days. Make sure the thread locker on there is not fucking wet at all or anything. And about 750 rounds later, so something around there, I've had no issues with the mount coming loose, even after getting dropped or been used in a competition or anything like that. Another thing about on the mount though, if they could, I would ask for like a 1/10 more of height on this thing. It's pretty good. It's true co-witness, but I just like lower third. Going back to the reticle itself now, this is one of those things that it can be, it's good. And honestly, if you left it alone, it's not that big a deal, but it can be better. It honestly could. Biggest thing I would say is put wind holds in on it. It's kind of an industry standard at this point, even on the lower budget optics. And honestly, it does so much for the shooters. Just not having to hold out in somewhere in space on your optic, just to have something to physically see off of and bracket off of. Going off the optic, the actual reticle itself too, they weren't super clear with me what the reticle is zeroed to. Now, when I asked, they said 556, which is great. What 556? All right, there's M193, which is pretty ubiquitous, which I assume they actually cited it too, because it seemed to be the closest in my testing on that one. But you also have MK677. What is the MK? The 77 grain stuff. I can't remember it off the top of my head to save my fucking life. Which I've used too, and it worked fairly well with this reticle. You also have M855, and again, it seemed to work okay with this reticle. But I kind of want to know what load data they're using, what feet per second, were they expecting this optic to be used with? What grain weights were they expecting the optic to be used with? What coefficient were they expecting to be used with? Little things like that go a long way to helping you know what round to use with this, or whichever round that you're using, how to kind of calculate it to the BDC that's currently in here. But needless to say, even with weak-ass 223, I was able to make first round hits up to about 500 yards with this thing fairly easily once I learned where the holds were. Not only that, we had a couple new shooters try this thing and they loved it. Fucking loved it. They can see the targets more easily. We had a guy, first round out of this thing, hit a 500-yard target once I told him where to hold using this reticle, and first shot hit. Another thing I would like to point out to them is the actual plate itself back here. Now, the Picatinny plate is fine and dandy, but I would highly recommend you actually have separate plates for specific optics. Mostly T1, T2, RMR, or the like that can mount directly back here. Or if they can, move this mount away from here and move it up here. You have plenty of room up here, wouldn't interfere with this fiber optic. And I would put the mounts right here so that the optic itself, the red dot, can be hosted further forward. That way with night vision, you're not bumping your head. This is something else that the industry seems to be going to, is more forward optics. And not only that, red dots work great the further forward they are on the receiver. Don't put them on your handguards, but on the receiver. Mostly because it gets rid of a lot of that parallax that all optics do have. This is not going to be the last you see of this optic. I'm going to be using this probably for a hot more minute. I would like to get about 3,000, 4,000 rounds on the optic, take it to a couple classes, take it out to a couple more competitions. I have another competition in May coming up where I'm going to be able to really stretch this thing out to about 600, 700 yards. And I plan on bringing this bad boy with me. I'm going to piggyback a red dot on here. I'm going to get it sighted in for my 77 grains, and we're going to do work. We're going to try our best to see just how great we can actually make this, and just how great this optic really is. Now, obviously you guys can tell that I'm a fan of this optic. This is an optic that truly does punch above its weight class, and I think this is something they did really wisely with going with a prism style sight, because one, they're easy to make. They're easy to make, very strong, and not only that, they're popular right now, and they're popular for a reason, because they are kind of the everyman's optic. And with an everyman's optic, you have the everyman's rifle, and as long as you can fit those two together, you're doing excellent. This is something that's 100% worth your buy, even with some downsides that it does have. They're currently working on a V2, and hopefully they took some of my criticism in with that, and we get a better V2. I told them I look forward to working with them more and more. They look forward to working with me as well. Now, just as a thank you to my viewers, and I know I only have a few of you guys, and I do thank you guys for watching, liking, sharing, the whole 9 yards, all right? But they're offering a discount code to you. Now, I get no kickback off of this. Let me start by saying that. I get absolutely no kickback. I ask for no kickback whatsoever, but it is something they can pass on to you. I believe it is a 10% discount. That's probably something I probably should have asked. The discount code is FF10. Go to their website, use it, pick up this optic, get it, show them that you love it, and honestly, guys, you won't be disappointed. Especially if you are saving up for that ACOG. This is something I tell people all the time. Just get an optic that works for now. You can save up and get the nice stuff. But here's the thing. Do you want to spend the money on an ACOG and it turned out you fucking hate an ACOG? Well, guess what? This is ACOG life. This is the ACOG we have at home, but it's actually mother's cooking. So it's actually good. This is not a bad optic. This is an optic that I truly believe that once we kind of fix a couple things here and there, is truly going to be a go-to-war optic. And honestly, if tomorrow parachutes start falling out of the fucking sky and whoever decided to fuck up and invade America, I wouldn't mind grabbing this and going to do work. Truly, guys, you can't. If you're in the market for a prism optic, 100% give this a look. Yes, there's other optics out there. Yes, there's other prism optics that are cheaper out there, and there's some that we're testing right now. But truly, I think this is the one to go for. 4X is the perfect magnification, I believe, for a prism style, for fixed optics. Putting a piggyback back on this thing, you get to do 90% of the work. It's a red dot and a magnifier, but better. 100% go pick yourself up one of these. Again, use code FF10, save yourself some money, get a good optic. There's no kickbacks that go to me. Y'all have a good day.